Well, welcome to January 1st, 2009, and welcome to Choomer. This will be one of the first Chooms that you'll see, and it's going to be on something that's really actually pretty simple, which is making a cup of coffee. However, with the distinction of using freshly roasted beans, freshly ground beans, which would be distinct from what most people generally get. I don't pretend to have the end-all be-all as far as coffee equipment, and I certainly would not call myself a coffee expert, but really like coffee. Could probably be accused of being passionate about coffee. So with that all being said, the bottom line is it's just about how to make a good cup of coffee, or at least what I think is a really great cup of coffee, by using the fresh beans that are freshly roasted that still have all the aroma and the fragrance that make all the difference in the world of getting really great coffee. Now, just let me show you my coffee center. What you'll see, well, of course, is my yellow coffee mug. Wouldn't want to miss that. But right next to that is my Seiko Aroma, which is my espresso machine. Now, that's just a very basic bottom line espresso machine that has a steam pump, very different from a steamer, which some of the lesser expensive models have. This, however, does not have what's called a centrifuge, which would suck the water back out of the puck and make it dry. So it's kind of messy when you get done, but you know, if you're making 1 or 2 cups at a time, it's not that big of a deal. Right next to it is my Solus Maestro Classic conical burr grinder, and then you'll see next to that my Krups coffee brewer. So that's my coffee center. And then right up here in my cabinet, you're going to see coffee. There she is. Well, that's a airtight container of Costa Rican Terrazzo coffee beans, and up at the top there you'll see my container of espresso beans. And I might also point out that I use paper filters, and more importantly, I use your brown paper filters for the plain and simple fact that these brown paper filters do not contain any kind of a bleaching agent. Generally speaking, a lot of these paper filters generally use formaldehyde in order to make them white. I don't know about you, but that's great for dead people, but I'm not dead, and I just can't see any reason to include that in my life and have it filtering in or bleeding into my coffee through a filter. So I use the brown ones that don't have any of that. All right, so I'm going to get some Costa Rican coffee here, and just so you know, now here's a scale, and what we're going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how much coffee I use, just one scoopful. And of course, you know, there are some folks who may want more or less, but now as far as grams, you can see clearly on the scale there it says 15 grams. Okay, now that's the equivalent of just a little over a half an ounce. Let's see. Well, I didn't hit the right button there. Let's try that again. Let's switch it over to grams, and you'll be able to see perhaps. Okay, well, I didn't. I switched from grams to ounces, and I think you can just make it out. It's right at a half an ounce. Okay, so we'll forego any more on the scale. Not that big of a deal. It's just a measurement because, you know, people are different. Some people like more, others like less. And that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no set way. It's whatever way you like your coffee. All right, so we're going to put this in the grinder and put the lid back on here. And now get ready for some noise. This rascal does make some noise. That will generally wake you up in the morning, and perhaps anybody else that might be asleep. Okay, now, you take a look at the grounds, you can get a pretty good idea. That's a coarse grind. It's not a fine grind like you would use for espresso. and you don't need to have a fine grind. Now, again, there's no set way. Some people might prefer a finer grind for their coffee. Okay, we got the pot turned on now. In about 2 minutes, I'll have me a cup of coffee. Now, something distinct about my coffee brewer is that the particular way this was made was kind of favorable for a 1 cup of coffee brew. Reason being is that it will allow the water to accumulate in the hopper, which is right here, and it allows that water to stay on there maybe a minute before it actually begins to filter down into the thermos. And the theory behind that is that the longer the water stays in contact with the grounds, then the more extraction of coffee that you're going to get from those grounds, which obviously means a lot as far as how the coffee tastes. And that's kind of what we're after, is the best we can get in all occasions. So let's see, did I put water in there? No, I didn't put water in there. Well, here we go. I'm doing real good. All right, so we're going to let that cool off just a little bit. I've done that before. You can tell this is not rehearsed. This is just the way it gets done every day. Now, I'm using water out of the fridge here, and I'm getting exactly a cup and a quarter of water. Now, in case you're wondering why a cup and a quarter, well, that's because most coffee mugs, if not all, well, no, obviously that's not a standard. Most coffee mugs are, yeah, you see what happens there? Most coffee mugs are 12 ounces. And certainly mine is 12 ounces, so it's to my best interest to have only 12 ounces, because otherwise it's going to overflow, or it's not going to be enough if I put less. But more importantly, why did I get that from the refrigerator? Well, here again, I have a filter on my refrigerator, as most of you probably do as well, that filters out the chlorine along with some other things. So here again, if you're using tap water, you're definitely not going to get the best flavor in your coffee. So filtered water, fresh coffee, freshly roasted, and that will give you the very best cup. So if that's not the way you're making your coffee, you might want to think about that and check it out.